Right. So the second session of this week. Now it is the chapter 7. The author, Gulliver, leaves Lagado and arrives at Maldonado. Okay, and there's no ship ready for him to take him from Maldonado. So he takes a short voyage to Glubbdubdrip. Glubbdubdrip is just another town in Maldonado. All right. While he is waiting for a ship to take him home, he goes to Glubbdubdrip, a short visit. And he is welcomed by the governor. Now, the island of Lagnac stands southeastwards of Japan, about 100 leagues distant. There is a strict alliance between the Japanese emperor and the king of Lagnac, which affords frequent opportunities of sailing from one island into the other. I determined, therefore, to direct my course this way in order to my return to Europe. I hired 2 mules with a guide to show me the way and carry my small baggage. I took leave of my noble protector, who had shown me so much favor and made me a generous present at my departure. My journey was without any accident or adventure worth relating. When I arrived at the port of Maldonado, there was no ship in the harbor bound for Lagnac, nor likely to be in some time. So he goes to Glubbdubdrip. Glubbdubdrip, the next paragraph, as nearly as I can interpret the word, signifies the island of sorcerers or magicians. So this is an island of magicians. Glubbdubdrip means island of magicians. And it's about the third as large as the Isle of Wight, and extremely fruitful. It is governed by the head of a certain tribe, who are all magicians. This tribe marries only among each other, and the eldest in succession is Prince or Governor. So this is the most interesting island to the extreme. When we arrived at the island, I skipped the next paragraph. When we arrived at the island, which was about 11 in the morning, one of the gentlemen who accompanied me, went to the governor and desired admittance for a stranger who came on purpose to have the honor of attending on his highness. This was immediately granted, and we all 3 entered the gate of the palace between 2 rows of guards, armed and dressed after a very antique manner, and something in their countenances that made my flesh creep with a horror I cannot express. So as they entered the palace, 2 rows of soldiers accompany them. So they are walking, and on their side 2 rows of soldiers protecting them and walking into the palace. And he cannot hide his fear. There's a creepy feeling inside the palace, because he knows that this is a place of magicians. Okay, we passed through several apartments between servants of the same sort, ranked on each side as before, till we came to the chamber of presence, where after 3 profound obeisances and a few general questions, we were permitted to sit on 3 stools near the lowest step of His Highness's throne. So the Highness, the Emperor, is sitting on a throne, and there are 3 steps in the bottom of his throne, so they sit there. Gulliver is one of them. Governor assured me that I should receive no hurt. No one is going to hurt him. And observing that 2 companions to be under no concern, who had been often entertained in the same manner, I began to take courage and related to His Highness a short history of my several adventures. Yet not without some hesitation, and frequently looking behind me to the place where I had seen those domestic spectres. So what is interesting is in the corridors he sees some spectres, spirits, souls walking around. Next page, next paragraph. After this manner, we continued in the island for 10 days, most part of every day with the governor, and at night in our lodging. I soon grew so familiarized to the sight of spirits that after the third or fourth time they gave me no emotion at all. So he sees spirits everywhere. Okay, spirits walking, ghosts walking in the corridors everywhere. He fears in the first few days, but then again he gets used to it and he doesn't care about them because everywhere is full of ghosts. All right. If I had any apprehensions left, my curiosity prevailed over them. For His Highness, the governor ordered me to call up whatever persons I would choose to name, in whatever numbers among all the dead from the beginning of the world to the present time, and command them to answer any questions I should think fit to ask, with this condition that my questions must be confined within the compass of the times they lived in, and any one thing I might depend on, that they would certainly tell me truth, for lying was a talent of no use in the lower world. So the governor asks him to call any historical character that he wants to see in his presence. I made my humble acknowledgments to His Highness for so great a favor. We were in a chamber from whence there was a fair prospect into the park. And because my first inclination was to be entertained with scenes of pomp and magnificence, I desired to see Alexander the Great, the first person he wants to see, at the head of his army just after the Battle of Arbela, which upon a motion of the governor's finger, immediately appeared a large field under the window where we stood. Alexander was called up into the room. The great Alexander. It was with great difficulty that I understood his Greek, had but little of my own. He assured me, upon his honor, that he was not poisoned, but died of a fever by excessive drinking. So, this is called rewriting of history, okay, which is called historiography. I'm writing here for your information. Historiography, okay? Historiography means creating a new history, okay? Creating a new history. This is a postmodernist term. In the postmodernist fiction, we see this term a lot. Historiographic metafiction. Let me write that full term. Historiographic metafiction, which means you rewrite the history. So in the known history, okay, officially known history, we see that Alexander the Great died heroically in a war. But in this new history, his spirit, his ghost, tells him that he died by excessive drinking because he was an alcoholic. Next, I saw Hannibal passing the Alps, who told me he had done a drop of vinegar in his camp. I saw Caesar and Pompey at the head of their troops, just ready to engage. I saw the former in his last great triumph. I desired that the Senate of Rome might appear before me in one large chamber, and an assembly of somewhat a latter age encounter with another. The governor, at my request, gave the sign for Caesar and Brutus to advance towards us. And I was struck with a profound veneration at the sight of Brutus, and could easily discover the most consummate virtue, greatest intrepidity, firmness of mind, truest love of his country, general benevolence for mankind in every lineament his countenance. And Caesar freely confessed to me that the greatest actions of his own life were not equal by many degrees to the glory of taking it away. And Gulliver finds out that Brutus and Caesar did not have such big problems, and Brutus was a lover of his own country. But the real history tells us that Brutus was a betrayer of Caesar and betrayer of his own country. So a different history, which is called historiography. In the next chapter, okay, I think we can finish this chapter today. In the next chapter, I propose that Homer and Aristotle might appear at the head of all their commentators. So philosophers, he wants to meet the ancient philosophers. Homer was the taller and comelier person of the two, walked very erect for one of his own age, and his eyes were the most quick and piercing I ever beheld. Now, I ask you to imagine yourself. Please imagine what kind of historical character do you want to meet and what kind of questions you want to ask them. Aristotle stooped much and made use of a staff. His visage was meager, his hair lank and thin, his voice hollow. And later on, I introduced Didymus and Aesthusius to Homer. So he sees philosophers from different centuries, okay, and he introduces them to one another. I then desired the governor to call up Descartes and Gassendi, with whom I prevailed to explain their systems to Aristotle. So Descartes and Gassendi, came in the later centuries than Aristotle. So when they described their systems, philosophical thoughts to Homer and Aristotle, Aristotle is surprised because his philosophy was so far away from them. Because in centuries, philosophies change. Okay, but on the next page, I was chiefly disgusted with modern history. For having strictly examined all the persons of great name in the courts of princes for 100 years past, I found how the world had been misled by prostitute writers. Now he has listened to a modern statesman and he finds out new things about the modern history, and he's disgusted with the modern history because the modern history is misled by prostitute writers to ascribe the greatest exploits in war to cowards. All right? So coward people are declared as victors. And the wisest counsel to fools. Fools are described as wisest people. Piety to atheists, chastity to sodomites, truth to informers. Well, who is an informer? Informer is a person who tells what we are speaking here in somewhere else. Okay? I'm speaking here about something and one of you goes and tells whatever I say somewhere else. Informers. All right? So truth is given to informers. Informers are described as the tellers of truth in modern history. How many innocent and excellent persons had been condemned to death or banishment by the practicing of great ministers upon the corruption of judges, malice of factions? How many villains had been exalted to the highest places of trust, power, dignity, and profit? How great a share in the motions and events of courts, councils, senates might be challenged by boats, whores, pimps, parasites, buffoons. How low an opinion I had of human wisdom and integrity when I was truly informed of the springs and motives of great enterprises and revolutions in the world. So now Gulliver is beginning to have a very low opinion of the famous statesmen, famous philosophers, and famous events of the history. Here, the next paragraph. Here I discovered the roguery and ignorance of those who pretend to write anecdotes or secret history. So the writers of secret history are ignorant, who sent so many kings to their graves with a cup of poison. Will repeat the discourse between a prince and the chief minister, where no witness was by. So you hear a conversation between a chief minister and the prince, where there were no witness. Unlock the thoughts and cabinets of ambassadors and secretaries of state, have the perpetual misfortune to be mistaken. Here I discovered the secret causes of many great events that have surprised the world. How a whore, a prostitute, can govern the backstairs. Okay, the backstairs, a council, a state. So a prostitute can govern you, one person in the back room, let me call it, and then the back room, one person can govern a senate by a changed, manipulated mind by a prostitute, and then he will manipulate the Senate, and then the Senate will govern the whole country. Okay, a general confessed in my presence that he got a victory purely by force of cowardice and ill conduct, and an admiral that for want of proper intelligence he beat the enemy to whom he intended to betray the fleet. 3 kings protested to me that in their whole reigns they never did once prefer any person of merit. So 3 kings confessed that they never employed merit people, valuable people, clever people in their kingdom, because they don't want them around them. They don't want clever people around them. They showed with great strength of reason that the royal throne could not be supported without corruption. Well, throne, where the king sits, the throne cannot be supported without corruption. There's always corruption to support the king, the palace. Okay, very political. Because that positive, confident, testive temper which virtue infused into man was a perpetual clock to public business. And on the next page, perjury, oppression, subornation, fraud, panderism, and like infirmities were amongst the most excusable arts they had to mention. For these I gave, as it was reasonable, great allowance. When some confessed they owed their greatness and wealth to sodomy and incest, one of them confessed that they owe their greatness, they owe their power to sodomy, incest. Others to the prostituting of their own wives and daughters. Others to the betraying their country or their prince. Some to poisoning, more to the perverting of justice in order to destroy the innocent. I hope I may be pardoned if these discoveries inclined me a little to abate of that profound veneration which I am naturally apt to pay to persons of high rank. Okay, on the next page, I was surprised to find corruption grown so high and so quick in that empire by the force of luxury so lately introduced. So the corruption and luxury are parallel to each other. When luxury grows, corruption grows. All right? Which made me less wonder at many parallel cases in other countries. Okay, that's the end of this chapter. All right, So I see you not tomorrow, because tomorrow lessons will be on Saturday. I'll see you on Saturday. Okay, I'm closing the session now. Bye.